Hello and welcome back to another episode of You Want to Do What. Today we've got Imogen on and she's a self-taught business owner. Hi Imogen,
Hello.
how are we today?
Yeah, very good, thanks. I was literally just thinking how calming and chilled your voice is when
Oh,
when you did that intro. Very
I've done it a few
soothing.
times now.
Yeah, you've nailed it.
Thank you. So do you want to tell everyone a bit about what you do?
Yeah, so God, where do I start? I think this is quite classic, isn't it, for anyone that's kind of like built their own thing, is that it's not very
It's not always clear, is it?
no. So I feel like I need to really spend time on coming up with kind of like an elevator pitch of what I actually do, because every time I have an interview like this, it changes. So I am from Jersey in the Channel Islands, and this is really quite like a defining factor of kind of what I do, I think, in
Mhm.
that I always tell everyone that I'm kind of an accidental entrepreneur, although I hate that word. So accidental business owner, if you will. I never thought that this would be something that I'd end up doing. But I went to a very kind of academic all girls school,
Mhm.
was very creative, and creativity was kind of never really it was just a nice to have on the school curriculum. And all of my best friends are amazing, highly intelligent women, all very academic, and I was just very creative. So they all went off to university to do law and accounting and all of the amazing things that they do.
Mhm.
And I went off and to study fine art. And then in the first year, realized that fine art was not my thing, and ended up switching my degree to do media and communications, which I loved, which is essentially marketing. Like it's a lot of
Mhm.
marketing, sociology, psychology, that kind of thing, and I loved it. And that kind of pushed me down a career in marketing, which was very happy to do. Loved marketing.
Mm.
Came home to Jersey, and Jersey's very small, but it has a very large finance industry. So the only kind of marketing jobs I could go into were in the finance industry, which stuck out for about a year. And I was kind of like, this is just not my thing.
Mm.
And from that, well, I don't want to make this story too long, but
No, go for it.
cut a long story short, I was basically kind of like, all right, there's no jobs for me here. I'm going to have to kind of create my own. And from there, that started in fashion. Originally, I really wanted to go and work in marketing in fashion. And I just thought that I would go to London and find a job there. But I went traveling in the meantime around Southeast Asia and Australia, came back and was like, right, I'm going to move to London. But at that point, I'd realized how much of a homebody I was. I'd missed my family when I was traveling. I met someone here, and there was just more reason to stay.
Mhm.
So from there, I then, just as a creative hobby, started making some little lace bralettes, like as a creative thing to do, which then turned into a business. And spent a couple of years scaling that, kind of dipped my toe in the water with fashion design. And I'm completely everything I do, I'm completely self-taught. I have no background or experience in fashion
Wow.
or business or any other than my marketing background from uni and the brief stint I did in professional marketing as a graduate.
Mm.
The fashion side of things was completely self-taught, and spent a few years kind of trying to scale that. And as that grew and as lockdown hit, there was a lot of, I think, as a lot of people got furloughed, there was people had a lot more time on their hands. And I think there was a lot of women kind of being like, right, this is my time to start the business that I've always wanted to do. I don't know if you noticed, but just through lockdown, there was just all of these new candle businesses, cake businesses, they were just
Yes,
popping up
definitely.
everywhere.
Definitely.
And I think, I began to notice them. And I think because I know how hard it is to build a business. And I hadn't realized just quite how lucky I was that I was a business owner and I was also creative and I also understood how branding works.
Mm.
I didn't realize, I think, quite how privileged I was until I saw these businesses popping up, and I was like, oh no, you're doing it wrong. Like, oh my God, please let me help you. And I just kind of, at the time, I had a couple of friends that wanted to start businesses. So I was helping people, just because I was just so passionate about it. So passionate about them starting their own businesses, and I was helping them with their branding. And then that kind of got a bit out of hand. And I got to the point where I was like, right, actually, this is turning into a bit of a business. So I then founded Bijou Brands, which is my service-based business, which has now kind of taken over a bit, I would say. I mean, Imogen Apparel, my fashion brand, has definitely taken a step back, and it's now no longer the business that I'm trying to scale. But Bijou has kind of, through a series of really great clients and projects that we've worked on, it's kind of started building momentum. I've just hired a team member, so there's now 2 of us, and yeah, that's just kind of it's scaled to very unexpectedly, but I'm thoroughly enjoying it. And as I said, it's just self-taught the whole way. I think just kind of figuring it out as I've got along. But I feel like after kind of like 3-4 years of doing that, I finally actually know what it is that I do and what I want to be doing.
Yeah, I mean, I love that. I love the fact that you're self-taught, and apart from the little stint in marketing you actually did, that you've actually just gone out there and just given it a go. Which, if you'll agree with me, I think that's 90% of the battle sometimes with
100%.
starting businesses or doing anything. I think I left my corporate job about year and a half ago, 2 years. And for the first year I was like running around like a headless chicken, like, right, how do I make money, like how do I launch business, how do I do this, how do I do that? But actually it's that period of time between you actually taking the dive. It'll be ages before you feel like, okay, I kind of know what I'm doing. And even then, sometimes some days you'll wake up and you'll be like, oh my God, I have no idea what I'm doing.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. And I always say to people, because I think a lot of people think of business and having a business, looking at it as this kind of colossal mountain that you have to climb. And I think a lot of people don't end up doing it or trying because they think of it as this huge thing. Whereas, as you say, the hardest part is just doing the first dive, taking the first step, as you said, because I think in the same vein as what you said, it's always going to be difficult. Some days I do wake up and I'm like, what the fuck am I doing today? Sorry, am I allowed to swear?
Of course you are.
Sorry.
Yeah, I wake up and feel
I swear quite
same.
a lot. But I think once you've done the what the fuck am I doing once, it then becomes easier to keep being okay with it. But as you say, I think
you recognize that feeling, don't you? Go like, what the fuck? And you go, oh, actually, no, last time I felt like this, I did this and this. I've got this.
Exactly. Yeah. I think it's just learning that, once you get through it once, you're like, oh, okay, I thought that was really bad. And it actually wasn't as bad as I thought it was. And even if it was bad, I learned some really big lessons from it. Okay, right, I'm ready to go through it again. And it just becomes easier. You just build that resilience muscle.
I think you'll agree with me again here when I talk about failure as well. I don't, at school, you just talk like failure is the worst thing in the world. If you fail an exam, oh God, you're never going to be able to do what you want to do.
Yeah.
And it's actual bullshit.
Yeah.
The more you fail, the better actually you end up, because you understand yourself better. You understand where you went wrong and how you can fix it.
I don't know. I feel really sad for my, 14, 15, 16-year-old self, because like, as you said, at school, like I just remember, like I thought that I was thick when I was at school because I was creative and I wasn't academic. And I remember that feeling of like, my friends were getting A stars and I was getting B's, C's or whatever, and just feeling just awful.
Yeah.
And I just think school just breeds such a negative connotation around failure. And actually, like, don't get me wrong, failing is not nice. Like it's not a nice feeling. It's horrible. But I think, I this year, definitely this past maybe even 6 months, as I say, I feel like I'm finally kind of like leveling out. I feel like I've gone through the shit and like gone through the kind of the turmoil and, the waves, the kind of choppiness of it all. And I feel like I'm finally at a point of calm on the other side. But what I've learned from that is probably in the last 6 months is to really try and welcome failure now, and try and switch my mindset around it. And when things go wrong, actually being like, right, wow, this is going to be such a lesson. Imagine how I'm going to tackle this next time. Or imagine, like, think of the lessons that I have learned from this that are so valuable to me becoming the business owner that I want to be. I would not be able to become that person without having gone through that failure, and actually kind of switching my mind. And as I said before, like, it's not easy. It's not like I'm just like welcoming failure with open arms. Like, it still feels shit.
Yeah.
But actually reframing it in your mind and taking a breath and taking a minute and going, okay, what actual positives am I going to take from this?
Yes. I mean, I love your Instagram as well, where you talk openly about your, business life and the difficulties or the achievements you've made. I think it's, at the moment on the internet, there is a shit ton of bullshit around being an entrepreneur and being a business owner.
I hate it so much.
Oh my God, there's so and these people like prey on these, naive people that are excited or they want to change their life or whatever, and they listen to these. I mean, there are some actual decent people out there with great advice, but a lot of it is just bullshit. And you like, no, that's, you can't just wake up one day and the next, I've made £1 million in e-commerce. Like, no, that doesn't happen.
Yeah. Well, yeah, A, it doesn't happen, and B, these people that I don't know, I think I've been made more aware of how much bullshit there is since the kind of the birth of reels. And you'll see these reels and it's like how to make 6 figures from the beach and stuff like that, and I click on them and I'm like, their bio is, I help entrepreneurs make regular 10k months, and I'm like, A, cringe, and then B, where's your evidence? Like, you're just saying that there's all this money that you make. Like, you're not showing me how. You're not talking to me like a human being. You're just making these cringy reels where you're, claiming to make 10k, have consistent 10k months, and there's just nothing to back it. And I just hate that, just because I think it's so, A, the naive people do get sucked into it. And B, it's also just like, for me, I'm inspired by real people. So I don't find that inspiring. I find it cringeworthy. And I'm like, that no one's going to want to, like, running a business, like, I'm not going to, these people glorify it. Like, it is fucking brilliant. Like, I love it so, so much. But I can't get inspired by the bullshit, and I don't think anyone else will. So I don't think that helps anyone. No. I think that bullshit, I can help you make 10k months, whatever, I think that's almost just like it's a money grabbing scheme. Like, these vulnerable people will buy into whatever you're selling and probably get nothing from it, and then the other people who actually genuinely want to start a business just don't find that inspiring and actually can't find the inspiration from real people to start their business. So I'm very, very, very against it. It really grinds my gears.
That leads me into, when people are starting businesses and they look at people like yourself and they might follow you on Instagram, where do you actually go for that kind of inspiration or that kind of sound advice where you're like, actually, these people know what they're talking about? Is there any sources you use at all for that kind of information?
I mean, maybe not so much now. I think I try to not consume too much now, because I, like many people, can very easily get sucked into kind of imposter syndrome and seeing what other people are doing, and actually trying to, A, feeling shit because I feel like someone's doing better than me, and B, sometimes trying to replicate what they're doing, especially in my industry. I've done that in the past, and actually A, just doesn't feel aligned with me and my brand and where I want to go. And B, that's also just like an icky way of doing business, I think, when you're just kind of following and copying what your competitors are doing. So I try not to consume too much, because I can recognize that I'm falling into that hole. And I think it kind of, I lose my direction of where I want to be taking my business when I do that too much. But I mean, in terms of kind of inspiration, it's really just, I mean, I could probably count on one hand the amount of people that actually, I am truly in and hang off every word they say. And they're normally just, people, women who are 2, 3, 5 years ahead of me in business. And, just keeping an eye on, how they're scaling, what tactics they're using. But then equally, I get heavily inspired by my clients as well. Like I'm so awful with my discovery calls. I set 15 minutes aside and I end up chatting to people for like 45 minutes, an hour, just because I find like that's such a, it's such an intimate setting to be so heavily involved in someone's business. And they're telling me how they found me and the content that they've consumed of mine that they found really inspiring. And then, I'm telling them how I'm hearing about their story. And that's where I find my inspiration. So I look up with people who are kind of, a few years ahead of me, but then also it's my clients who are a few years behind me, and I get inspired by them as well. So yeah, I wouldn't say that there's,
I think that's a brilliant point. I think that's you don't necessarily have to go and listen or follow the bigger personalities on social media, whatever. Actually find the people that are in the trenches doing the work, and so in a similar field to you.
Yeah, and it's the same as what I was saying before. I can't, the people, the Gary V's and the Tony Robbins of the world, like they're I can't relate to them. They're too far ahead. They're decades ahead of me. Whereas if there's someone who is literally, I can't really think past 6 months of what I'm planning on doing in my business. But if there's someone who is doing something that I'm like, okay, that's something that I've actually got to really plan and work towards. If they're a couple of years ahead of me and they're real about it, that's so inspiring to me. And I've always said that, like, I don't ever want to no matter how big, hopefully massive, my business grows, I don't ever want to not be relatable.
Yes.
Because it's not, well, I'm only speaking for myself. I don't find that helpful when people get so big that they're unrelatable.
Definitely. You're gonna have to bear with me here. This might sound like a bit of a weird tangent.
Okay.
But doing this podcast, we have loads of really interesting business owners and startups and whatnot come on and just talk about their industries and what they're doing. And recently, we've had a couple of people from the world of agriculture on, right? Okay. And agriculture is going through some sort of the fourth revolution, apparently, and tech and drones and whatnot are becoming part of it. Long story short, what that means is it's removing the sort of heavy lifting and that kind of aspect to agriculture. But what it does mean is things like branding, marketing, and communications is going to become hugely important. And this isn't just agriculture this is happening in. This is tons and tons of industries. So people with that creative flair, I think the entrepreneurs that have been on will agree with me, and they have said on the podcast, if you've got that kind of skill set, you're going to be in such high demand, because these industries that traditionally probably had huge wholesale businesses, it allows smaller farms or smaller businesses to actually reach massive audiences. Marketing and branding and communications is actually a huge part of the future. But what got you interested in that kind of world?
I almost interrupted you then when you said it's a big part of the future, because I think it's always been a big part of the landscape. People don't realize that it's happening. And that's what I find so interesting. We are manipulated every single day by the messages that we see and the emotions that are inflicted upon us through brands. And we don't even realize that they're happening. This first kind of came on my radar, probably first, second year of university, especially with my degree. This is what my degree kind of studied heavily on the psychological side behind the media. And my oh god, it's fascinating. Like I literally a couple of years ago, I read my dissertation for fun because I was like, this is so interesting. I actually sat down and reread it because I was so interested with what I was writing. So my dissertation was on idealized advertising. So it's been a couple of years since I graduated. And when I was at uni, Instagram was very much in its infancy. So it was an innocent kind of photo sharing platform. So I would have loved to have been at uni maybe kind of 5 years on and done my dissertation on Instagram, but my dissertation was on idealized advertising in kind of magazines, and how that affected how women of different demographics and age groups, how they reacted to it. So that was my initial introduction into that kind of world. And then when I went into professional marketing here, in the finance industry, I was quite lucky in that it was a small firm, but I headed up the branding, and I was in charge of branding everything. So I had to understand the brand inside and out. So you'd have your business development guys would send you, PowerPoint presentations or PDFs, and I had to make them on brand. And then when I was there, the business actually went through a very large rebrand. So that's when I got to understand the fundamentals of branding and how that works. So I've been very lucky in that sense, in that it's something that I've been very interested in. And, my university education and my first professional job out of university really kind of nurtured that understanding and that interest. And then I think it's now become a very personal interest as well. Like, I always kind of encourage people to actually think about when they're buying something, like what's making me buy this? Is it because I've seen it on some influencer that I follow and really admire, or is it because I really, really like the colors and I can see that in my home, or is it because the wording is making me, the other day I have a face cream at home and it's called Sunday Riley CEO, and I was putting it on and I was like, this is literally a face cream, but it makes me feel like a boss because it says CEO on the front. Stuff like that. Like I'm like, that is literally, it has manipulated me. There you go. You've got me. You have emotionally manipulated.
Amazing that that and it still affects you.
Yeah.
Like we kind of all know this, but it still gets us.
100%. I'm a marketer's dream. I think because also like I admire the art behind it.
Yeah.
Like there's a brand on Instagram, which some of your followers might know of, called Forth and Reckless. And they just did a kind of influencer launch. And their content strategy leading up to it, I wasn't even that bothered about any of the pieces, but their content strategy was just impeccable. I was literally so absorbed with everything they were posting. And then it got to the launch and, they were very clever, and they did sign up to get early access 24 hours before it goes live. Of course, I signed up, had a look, just having my coffee in the morning, and ended up buying 3 pieces. And because I know exactly what they're doing and exactly how it works, but I fall for it every time. And I think it's an appreciation of it. It's art to me. That is art. Like that is emotional, psychological, strategic art. And I just it fascinates me, but I fall for it every single time.
I think personally, I don't have any formal training in marketing or branding, but I'm equally as fascinated by it. I think it is incredible, like what they can do. And not only that, the advent of sort of digital marketing and marketing funnels and everything, branding, whatever, it's going to become just so much bigger and just such a huge part of our world and so many different careers. And if you look back 5 years ago, being a digital marketer, they would employ one person to be the digital marketer. Now that job is probably, I don't know, 20 different positions that you could be a TikTok your actual job could be to run a TikTok account or create content. Like, it is incredible. And I don't know, you're now in the position where you're starting to think about hiring people to help you do these things. So what kind of skill sets or personality traits do you look for someone to jump on board and help you with these kind of jobs?
So it's funny, I mean, in this same vein as what we're saying about, the digital world and how much it's expanding in terms of providing new jobs and people pay more interest in digital marketing. I have the same level of fascination in what the World Wide Web can do in terms of building your own career and building your own business. So I'm going off a bit on a tangent. I'll come back and answer your question.
Good,
but the lady that I have hired, I've never met. She is based in South Africa, so we probably will never meet.
Oh wow!
But she is so she's a designer as well. She's a brand designer as well, and we've worked together on a couple of projects. Her on a kind of like freelance basis. And, we work together very well. We have the same values, very similar kind of style, the same sort of, we're already working in the same niche. So I tend to niche to fashion brands at the moment, and she's the same. And just from having that kind of, I think you just, even when it's all online, it's all digital. I think when you work together, like a handful of times on projects, especially creatively, you just get a vibe for people, and you just make a connection. And that's, for me, like, that's the number one factor of the people that I work with, especially with clients as well. Like, I'm very lucky in that I'm now got my business to the point where, at the start, I think when you're first growing and you're first kind of trying to find your feet, like, you do say yes to everything. But I'm very lucky in that I can now get to the point, and if I meet someone online and I'm not vibing with them, I can just be like, honestly, I just don't think that I'm the right person for the job. I don't think I don't have a list, I don't have a tick list. I think it's just, after a while of trying things out, working with different people, whether that be clients or alongside people, you just develop a kind of an instinct for the kind of people that will work for you, and complement your personality and your skill set. But then I think in terms of kind of branding and marketing world overall, I wouldn't say that there's a particular type of person or skill set or personality. I think I'm really pleased to see that it's happening, though, because I think it is even though it's not really a creative industry, but it is.
Yeah.
It's an element. There's a huge element of creativity, and I think even though it's not at face value creative, it's not like your artists and your photographers and that kind of thing. It is very creative, and it's really nice to see, because I think being a creative is almost there's a quote, like a poor starving artist or something. Creative jobs and creative industries, I think, have always been looked at as lesser than for a long time.
Yeah, you're definitely right.
And undervalued. And don't get me wrong, you still get that, I'll still get inquiries and someone will say their budget is £200 and they can't understand why I wouldn't build a website for them for £200. And you do still get it, but I think there's been years of that, like people undervaluing A, how much time it takes, but B, as we've just discussed, how valuable it is.
It's the one differentiator, isn't it? Really, now.
Yeah. But I mean, I think, as I said before, I think people don't value it because it is so, people don't realize it's happening. People do not realize that they are being manipulated. And there is so much time and strategy that has gone into that behind the scenes to be able to, spark that emotion, to manipulate you into buying that thing. People don't realize it's happening. So I think that it has been undervalued for a long time. But as you said, it's definitely changing.
If you had a piece of advice for someone who wants to get into this world and start it, whether it be branding or marketing or whatever, and stand out during, you know, maybe an interview process or something, would it be to create some sort of portfolio or showcase your work or go out and do something extra, because it will become a really competitive field, I think?
Yeah, definitely. And I mean, I think I've very much left the life of working for someone else behind, but I know that's, you know, not for everyone. And I know there is a lot of small and up and coming agencies that, you know, will provide jobs like that. And I can only speak from my experience in that, you know, my agency is growing. And I think when it comes to it, we go back to school again. You know, I remember at school being told that your CV had to be a plain piece of A4 paper, no longer than 2 sides. Whereas I think now, if I was applying, or if I had you know, a role that people are applying to, especially in creative, I want that to be your portfolio. I think it needs to be as kind of like, you need to, especially as creative roles are going to be so highly sought after. And I think, you know, Gen Z have grown up with Instagram, TikTok, like all of these places to be creative. I think that the skill sets as the generations go on are going to become more and more, they're going to become more talented. It's going to be like second nature to them. So I think it's a case of perfecting that skill, and then when it comes to jobs, really showcasing what it is you can do. But just yeah, keep nurturing the skill set and just keep growing. I know for me, even now I can see I develop project on project, every single one. I'm like, oh my God, this is my favorite. And then I do it again. I'm like, oh my God, this is even better than the last one. This is my favorite. I think that it's creativity is a skill. You know, I know lots of people kind of say like, oh, I'm not creative, but it's a skill. And like any skill, it gets better the more that you practice it. So whether that's building your own business or trying to build a portfolio to get a job in that industry, I think it's just a case of nurturing it, and learning and speaking to people and educating yourself as much as you can.
Definitely. And as far as your creative agency goes, how's that going? You know, what's the kind of next steps for you, and what do you really specialize in there?
Yeah, so obviously, so as of this week, I've just hired, so there is 2 of us now. So my kind of job title, if you will, is lead creative and brand designer. And Bradine, my business partner, is our senior brand and website designer. So there's 2 of us now. And with my kind of background with image and apparel and just my kind of personal interest, we niche down to fashion. It's the same with Bradine. Like a lot of her clients are fashion as well. So I am, I mean, I'm very lucky in that I am my target customer 4 years ago. So I can just tap in and remember how I was feeling and what I wanted when I was trying to grow my fashion brand, you know, 3-4 years ago. So that's kind of what I'm trying to build now, is just a place where that solves those problems, and really try and niche down, because I think, you know, as we said before, like the creative industries are growing, and I just see more and more and more of these graphic designer, freelance designers and agencies and stuff cropping up. And I think it's scary, but it's really powerful and beneficial to niche down in these and as this industry grows, because, you know, if you try and serve everyone, you cater to no one. Whereas if, you know, you're very specific about it, and, you know, I'm doing, there's nothing unique in what I'm doing, except I'm saying that, okay, this is for fashion brand owners. And then, you know, me 4 years ago comes along, needs branding, needs a website, and I'm sifting through all of these agencies, all of these freelancers, and I come across one that says, hey, we're for fashion brands, I'm going to go with that one. So I think there's definitely there's definitely scope for things to grow, and that a lot of things are growing, but I would kind of say really think about niching down. So I'm offering advice again rather than answering your question. This is what I do. I go off on tangents and just so yeah, so at the moment we're really trying to kind of like hone in on that niche and just see where that takes us, in answer to your question.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much for your time, Imogen. It's been really great to chat to you. I think your business looks really exciting. It's obviously growing, and yeah, thank you again for your time.
Oh, thank you for having me.
Pleasure. And where can people find you, your businesses, and everything you're up to?
So my personal Instagram is at Imogen Jersey. If you are a fan of tongue-in-cheek business style reels, then you'll want to follow me over there. Oh my god, I'm still so bad at kind of plugging my own Instagram. It just feels so unnatural to me. But yeah, I'm there. And then if you want any branding help, then we are Bijou Brand, so BIJOUX brands, on Instagram as well.
Amazing. Thank you again.
Lovely. Thank you so much.